Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Nerd Switch podcast. My name is Dylan, and joining me today is my good friend and fellow nerd, Jeremiah.
Hello again, everybody.
Also joining us today, back again for the second time, my fiancée, Brianna.
Hello.
So we just had ourselves a little trip to the movie theater to watch Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So today we're just going to be reviewing that for you. Should be a nice, short and sweet episode unless we go off the rails, which we're pretty good at, so we'll see how it goes.
We'll be safe. We'll be okay.
But yeah, being the final movie in Phase 4, which we have previously kind of dogged on, we were curious to check it out and see if maybe the MCU Phase 4 closes out on a good note. Did they? Well, we're going to talk about it, so let's go ahead and flip the switch and dive into our review. Black Panther music. So
Black Panther, was it good?
Let's get our summary of the movie out. Don't want to spoil anything in here.
yeah, first half of our review here, we're gonna try and keep spoiler free for you guys if you want to go see it. We'll just give you a rundown on the plot, what we think about it in general, what we liked without getting into anything too deep, and then we'll take some time to really dive into what we do and don't like in the context of spoiling the movie for you. But basically, following the events of the last Black Panther, as well as everything that happened with the Avengers movies, the people of Wakanda fight to protect their home from intervening world powers as they mourn the death of King T'Challa. As everyone knows, Chadwick Boseman passed away before the movie could be filmed, so they progressed with it in the best way they could. Something we'll kind of talk about here is the tricky situation of trying to do a sequel when you have a intervening real-world event like that. So in general, what did you guys think of the movie overall? I'll start with you, Brianna.
Thank
I liked it. You know, I do agree some parts were a little unnecessary, like adding a whole new character just to start it up in a TV series. Mm-hmm. But I think that's so insignificant that I don't really take it as a huge negative effect to the whole movie entirely. But I liked it. The music score was my favorite part. I thought it was amazing. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. But I think my favorite part was the beginning. I thought having no music was so effective. Yeah. That little tribute at the beginning. I love that part.
I do think it started off pretty strong. I liked the opening funeral they had for King T'Challa. It is a little weird to have him the way they announced his passing at the beginning of the movie. You know, it's hard to explain something like that in a movie when it happened in real life, so it's going to feel a little unnatural for the movie, but I feel like they're just kind of doing what they can to make it make sense for the film.
The way I've kind of seen it is it's kind of like a memorabilia for him. It's to pass on a legacy.
Right.
To remember him by.
Yeah, it makes it difficult for the movie because, you know, obviously they couldn't have had any time to set up him being sick, you know, King T'Challa within the MCU. But things being the way they are, they did what they could with it, and I think it started off good. The movie for me kind of falls off the longer it goes on, and that's my main complaint is it's just really long. It's like almost 3 hours long, and I don't feel like it effectively used a lot of its runtime.
Very true.
Yeah.
I only missed like 10 minutes of it, and I still feel like I left and came back at the same thing, almost.
Right. Yeah, so you like it overall, though? You think it was a good time?
I think so. I think it's a solid, at least on my top 5 from Phase 4.
Yeah. It would be in my top 5 for Phase 4, but I feel like that's more of an insult to Phase 4 than a compliment. Because I feel like the movie's okay, but Phase 4, having an okay movie in Phase 4 is like having a great movie, I guess. I don't know. I don't like a lot of Phase 4.
I thought they did pretty good with this one. I like this one. I like character development. Opposed to them just being like, I'm good at all times. Well, she actually had a struggle to deal with in real life and in movie.
Yeah.
So seeing that relate in her
Yeah, I do feel
They
like
did pretty good.
they used Shuri pretty well. You do get some good character growth from her, because in the first Black Panther, she's very much more of like the comedic side character, like we've seen with a lot of others. Yeah.
She's this comedic techie,
Like
not really out in the field, but
the guy in the chair for Black Panther, you know. Yeah, so you do get to see some good growth from her character, and I think she does a good job overall. Some things I wish she would have had a little bit more set up, because the movie does imply she's taking on the mantle of Black Panther. However, it's pretty clear like it's not something her character really wants in the movie until she's kind of like forced into it. And I would have liked to see a little bit more time for that to be set up, because there's some parts where it just leads into events that I feel don't set themselves up as well as they could.
Yeah.
But what about you, Jeremiah? Your general thoughts on it?
I'll give you general thought. On the movie itself, it's okay. Like we've kind of said, we've had a few things that we don't really see necessary. Definitely some story and plot just kind of felt targeted and angry towards other things.
Yeah.
Other countries are terrible. They want what they can't have, apparently, according to this movie.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
But for like story-wise, like for basic looking at it, watching it, don't compare it. It's okay. I was able to enjoy watching it.
Yeah, I agree. I do feel the movie's pretty okay. Looking at IMDb right now, it has a 7.3 out of 10 with a 67 Metascore, which is probably about where I would put it in like the 7 range.
Give it around a 6.
Yeah.
Really?
Jeremiah don't like it for reasons we'll talk about.
You're about to get roasted.
But yeah, I think the performances were really good all around. I did like the music. It's a very visually good-looking movie. Marvel, I think they're starting to come back with a lot of their visual effects, because a lot of it did look pretty good compared to some of the movies we've seen recently. And yeah, it's a solid time. Like, if you like Black Panther, if you're invested in the story enough to want to continue to see all of the MCU releases, it's probably worth watching just to get that information you would otherwise be missing. But yeah, 2 okays and a good is not bad. So that being said, let's go ahead and shift more towards the specifics here. But we're just going to dive into the things we really like about it, the things we don't like, but in doing so, we do have to kind of dive into the story a little more. So if you're interested in seeing it, go watch it if you'd like. It's okay. But let's dive into some spoilers. So Jeremiah, I will let you lead this because I know you have probably the most opinions on it. What is it?
I mean, me, I guess I have a few.
Should we start with what you like the most?
Yeah, I can go off of that. I will definitely agree, like, character-wise, what they had to go off of, they did a great job. My one thing is the biggest intro to it is there were 2 possibilities for this movie. We have one of them, and they did the best they could. It did well for what they had. The other option would have been a recast of T'Challa.
So to address where we're going with this, because obviously Chadwick Boseman being gone, you have to watch the movie dance with the intricate situation of dealing with a real-life death in a movie that is now missing its main character, and dealing with a sequel directly following that where it's not set up. And yes, first option is they just weave it into the story as naturally as they can, which is what they tried to do here. And it works in some parts, it doesn't work as good in others. But a situation like that, it's not the movie's fault that he died.
Yes, not at all. That's never where I've gone with this. And it's not that I'm not saying that, like, this movie is a bad example, because this is a great example of one of these options.
Yeah.
We will, I have kind of always just been more curious on the what ifs, on what would have happened if we would have had that recast. How would this story have played out then? Seeing this movie, I'm wondering what would have changed, what would have done differently.
I do think there would have definitely been a different approach to the story. I feel like they had to do something to try and tie it together. which I think they, for the most part, pulled off. But like looking at the second option, they could have just recast T'Challa. I personally wouldn't be favorable to that decision just because Chadwick Boseman was so good in the role, and I think a lot of people hold him in pretty high praise as being one of the better characters brought to us from the MCU. So having him recast just would have been kind of a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, I feel. But it could have worked.
Yeah. I mean, I come from an age of 3 different Hulks and tons of other characters, like over 12 different Batmans, you know. It happens. It goes through time after time. And yes, in this situation, with this movie in particular, it was a either-or decision. They went with this path. I'm debating on if this was the correct path, is my kind of point on this. Because where this is going now, that is a character that is now forever changed. We don't know exactly where they're going with Black Panther's character. Because that is no longer, like, they didn't even really include him, like, that he was going to be there after Endgame.
Right.
Because we know he disappeared at the end of Infinity War. 5 years had gone past. We really don't get to see a whole lot of their losses.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of them in Infinity War or Endgame.
Another thing that gets, I guess, another quick thing to like talk about for the intro to the movie is not only are we 5 years later for T'Challa all of a sudden passing away, now we're going to jump another whole year. Yeah. So now we have 6 years of this whole like era of Wakanda and everything about them that we don't know anything that happened. It just kind of throws it out there. It kind of felt like a wiped slate that we're like, okay, that's kind of why it's complicated to me that you say that a recast would have been kind of like an easy way out. I feel like that would have done a lot more to their story.
Yeah, I feel like
pick up where they left off rather than starting all over, kind of like with what they did.
But what a slap in the face!
Yeah,
I would be pissed.
That's my argument. Is like if they just recast him, I feel like a lot of people would feel that Disney and the MCU was maybe being disingenuous with the situation.
Well, especially since that's his character, you know, he is the Black Panther.
Because the MCU has been really good at like making their characters fit into their roles. Like you can't imagine a different Iron Man or a different Captain America. Black Panther was getting there for me,
and that's the thing too, because that makes it even more complicated. Because Black Panther 1 cannot be compared to this movie now.
Yeah,
because we're comparing a completely like an actor that's no longer with us. Right. And I can't be like, oh, no, he did so much better. It's like, well, that was him. That was his character, made for him. This new character wasn't. They were thrown the role. Rather, they were kind of like how T'Challa became king. They were just past the role.
Yeah, the one thing I think that does benefit the movie, at least, is that Black Panther, even in the comics, has not been the same character the whole time. It's a mantle that's filled in. So that's the one thing where the movie can maneuver around the situation.
Yes, and that's another thing I'm always wondering is like, what if with this other scenario, if they had recast, if it had been something that was passed down then, I feel like that would have been a better outcome.
But you don't think they're building up to that though? Spoiler alert.
Oh, we're in the spoilers section.
We're in the spoilers
now. We're already there. With his son, finding out he has a son.
Yeah, very end of the credits, we see that he does have a son with
Nakia.
She's gorgeous.
I almost didn't recognize her when we saw her at the school.
Yeah, I kind of forgot who she was for a second. Then I remembered she was T'Challa's love interest.
I wasn't really sure. I was like, wait, who is this person? She looked like way different.
Yeah.
Well, she also had longer hair.
Yeah, the longer hair threw me off, I guess, because I did not recognize her at all at first. And then when they finally said her name, I was like, oh, wait, that is her?
Yeah, so you do get the introduction, or I guess the introduction to the idea that they did have a kid. So there is a technical Prince T'Challa in the MCU now. But, just
How they conceived this child, I don't know.
Well, you see, when a mommy and a daddy love each other very much.
The birds
I
and the
guess
bees.
this would have. My guess is this would have happened right before. It would have happened after Civil War, right before Infinity War.
Yeah.
That's my guess because, like we know, it's been 6 years, and this boy was actually 6 years old at the time.
Yeah.
So, my guess is they had already planned all of this, and when he went to help Captain America for Infinity War, he had already told them to go to their location, which I don't remember that name. It's
Haiti?
Haiti? Is that what it is?
Where Nakia was?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was in Haiti.
Haiti. So they went to Haiti, and that is where she prepared that he might not come back. And technically he didn't. He was gone for 5 years.
So I think it's implied that they knew he was sick, because in the movie they do establish his death as being a cause of some sort of disease, which his sister is trying to cure at the beginning, right before he passes. And so I think it's implied that, he kind of knew, kind of like in real life, because Chadwick did know that he was kind of on his way out, unfortunately, with what he had. So I think the movie kind of parallels that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's implied that they're setting him up for the idea that he might have to take over someday. But the movie very much focuses on Shuri taking over the mantle in the meantime, while they're dealing with the threat of Namor, who is the villain of the movie.
And that's kind of like the other thing too, because with T'Challa dying, that killed the Black Panther, and that's another thing that if they had done a recast would not have changed, because they still would have had their protector.
I think it would change a lot to the fans though, because it's just so hard to handle a role like that over with the same title and everything.
Well, that and the Black Panther, that is such like a symbolic thing now. There's not a lot of African American representation, especially in Marvel. But now it's a symbolic movie, and just to recast, that's such a slap in the face, I think. And how awkward would it be to be filming and have to fill such big shoes? I don't think anyone would want to.
Yeah. I'm definitely not demanding that he was recasted. There were a few. I remember when this movie was first announced that I was seeing tons of people demanding a recast. Even a blacklist, this movie that was not even finished. That they wanted T'Challa to stay alive. So I kind of agreed on that sense that, yes, I wanted this character alive. I didn't think that Chadwick Boseman passing away would want his whole character to just be removed.
Yeah.
But it's not his character. Oh, well, I guess it's his name character, but the Black Panther still lives on. Because, of course she brought what's it called?
But it wasn't until she brought the flower back that the Black Panther could live on.
Say that 5 times fast.
I already forgot what I said.
Yeah.
It wasn't until she brought the flower back, that Black Panther could live on. Yeah. And that's one thing I did like. Like you said, she had some real development from this, that she was, as we said, the tech in the chair. Mm-hmm. That she was not in the field, but this was her moment to get out and develop those skills and to experience it.
And get over her grief.
And then I think that got great.
Right. I wish she would have had some more time to kind of set up the idea, instead of having it all take place like in the one movie. Even though I argue the runtime's too long, I don't know how they could have done it. Maybe hinting at it in another movie.
I feel like she definitely didn't need another loss on her hands, which she got. That's another thing I wasn't really a fan of, is that
true.
Her mother dies.
Yeah, but real life doesn't work like that. You can't just take a break. It'll come out. It'll come at you one swing after another.
Yeah, she has a lot happen, and it's a lot of character growth that we have to absorb as the viewer at the same time. And I think the movie largely pulls it off. I do think she does a really good job in the role.
She did great.
And that's just a challenging thing to do in general, having to go from being a side character to the main character, lifting the weight of the movie. Especially filling the shoes.
She was a beloved character in the first movie.
Yeah.
And even towards the end, she had her own fighting style, and she even implemented that into her suit in the end. they broke, and then she had to use the normal fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like they gave her enough, like, constant super soldier, super strength kind of style fighting.
Yeah.
It was mostly, again, her tech. But that could be to be said that they didn't want to go that route for her character. They couldn't afford that style of editing, or this was this style that they wanted to choose for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think overall...
That and your bad guys were all super soldiers, super strength as well.
Right. I would have liked to see maybe a different approach to her accepting the mantle, because it did seem like she was kind of forced into it until she kind of budged a little bit. Like, you do get the really good scene where she goes to the afterlife and finds Killmonger there.
That was a great scene. I
Like,
really enjoyed that scene.
Yeah, you would expect her to see her mom or dad, but because her, as a character, did not actually believe the afterlife, as we've said, she's very much tech-based, doesn't really follow in the tradition that's been established by a lot of her other family.
Yeah, and that's kind of talked about, too, is that she just was a non-traditional person. A lot of the other Wakandans were all, like, against her, that she wasn't very traditional.
Right. So yeah, I did like that scene. It's Michael B. Jordan's great, and it was cool to see him back in that role, even though it's pretty brief. But,
He did pretty good. I was proud of it for him.
Yeah, I think maybe I just would have liked her taking on the mantle to be set up with, just be a little more fleshed out, I guess, to where she's willing to do it for her people. Because it did feel very much motivated still by vengeance and stuff.
Which she even understood. That's what she wanted, this, was
Right.
vengeance. And I feel like that's kind of where they took the story again, where it might have not have been that
Yeah.
had it been a different story.
Right. I just traditionally, like, taking on the mantle of Black Panther is more for the people and for Wakanda. Mm-hmm. So I guess I would have liked to see her do it from that angle, but it makes sense the way they did it for the story. But yeah. Overall...
Although, the only reason we went into this direction of the story is that we all are terrible nations. We all just want to fight each other.
Right.
Which, first thing we see in this again, Wakanda, in the first Black Panther movie, they announced that they have a great, powerful nation. And what does the other nations decide to do? Oh, let's send troops over there and raid their supplies, because they can't keep that to themselves.
Yeah, that's one thing I did kind of like, because we haven't talked about Namor yet, and we'll get to him a little more in detail, but one question he does pose to the Queen of Wakanda is like, you have this insanely powerful nation, why did you reveal it to the world, knowing that the nature of the world would be to seek your resources, you know? And that's one question I thought was actually pretty valid, because resources are a big part of politics.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that, you know, someone who has this substance that could easily make you the most powerful nation would be sought out by foreign nations. And it's something the movie does play with, and I thought it worked. I like it when they tie into some real-world stuff, if they can make it make sense
Just
for the movie.
makes me hate my world a little more, though, you know?
Our world sucks. So yeah, that's kind of one of the driving points. But let's shift over and talk about some of the other main things here. We'll just... no pun intended. Let's dive into talking about Namor a little bit.
Wow.
But
if you don't get it, it's because they're sea people.
Yeah, he is the Aquaman of the MCU. He's a little silly. But I think my thoughts on Namor is, overall, they did him pretty well. I did like his setup as a character, like how he became who he is with his people. It's revealed that they had a vibranium resource underwater they found that they essentially used to... What was the point they made there? Like, what was the reason for them initially drinking the plant thing?
Oh, it was colonizers had come over to that location,
right.
and they brought the Spanish flu. Like, that's
right.
back when they brought disease and enslavement, basically. And they were sick and dying. They prayed to their god, one of their gods, and he answered the shaman and gave him a vision of the plant in the water. Mm-hmm. And in taking that plant, it turned them all into fish people.
Yeah, it took away their ability to breathe oxygen. They had to derive oxygen from the water, which led to them moving in. And Namor was just a...
He wasn't even born at the time. He was still in the womb.
Yeah.
And...
Cute.
And
wheat thins.
Say woo.
Did I say it with too much H for you guys?
You kind of said it really funky.
You're like, whoom.
There was phlegm there. There shouldn't have been.
So yeah, he's just a...
He was born after the mother had taken the plant.
Right, which one thing that's kind of neat is it's implied that he's another mutant in the MCU now.
Because the one thing you know is he is the only one of the people that have pointed ears and the winged ankles.
Which, I will side note, do not make sense from a physics standpoint, because those would have to be some very strong wing muscles to fly him around like that.
Look at the god Hermes.
No. He's not real. But yeah, I overall think Namor's a cool character and he works pretty well for the story. His motivations were a little dumb to me, but there's a lot of plot points in this movie that I thought were just kind of dumb. Not a lot of logic in the later half.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is Namor wants to fight all nations. He just wants to be the conquering nation. He's like, I'll team up with Wakanda.
Right. So what's revealed is there's this machine that was built that can detect vibranium.
By a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
In grade school at the
We'll
time.
get to her. But they find essentially part of the vibranium that links to like Namor's whole kingdom, and he doesn't want his people to be discovered and understood like the Wakandans are. So his, like a result of his, fear of that or whatever, is to go to Wakanda and ask them to help him basically just...
start a war with
just
the world.
So you don't want to be discovered, but you want to go start a nationwide conflict with everyone. And it's just, I don't know, it didn't logically make a lot of sense.
He's also then not logically thinking, oh wait, wasn't there like a dozen super strong people on that surface world? Yeah. Hulk, you've got Thor, which Thor is the protector of Earth. I guarantee he would come back. You've got the Guardians of the Galaxy, who would, again, protect Earth, because... wow, I can't think of Star-Lord's name.
Peter Quill.
Peter would definitely want to protect his home.
Right.
He's already done it multiple times. So they're going to go start a war with the wrong people and instantly lose.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's even then when he goes to Wakanda and the Queen's like, well, no. He's like, okay, well then we'll kill all you guys too. And it's just some of his motivations didn't seem well-founded, I guess. Mm-hmm. It could make sense if they set it up better. It just seemed kind of...
I also just didn't feel like they had the military power that they had from the first movie.
Yeah, one line I actually quite liked was when Namor kind of threatens the Queen, and he's like, we have more soldiers than you do blades of grass in Wakanda, which I was like, that's a cool line. I believe it.
That is very interesting that they had such a large kingdom under the ocean, though.
Yeah, they must have been populating like crazy down there.
Well, I mean...
Which, if you think about it, is gross. Because they don't get no foreigners.
Oof. Hey, uncle, brother. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, a little gross.
Yeah, what did you think of Namor overall, Brianna? Did you like him or?
I don't know.
After all of that,
you know, it's hard to say. His motivations were a bit wonky, but I am pretty sure that his character overall is supposed to be chaotic. Like, you aren't supposed to be suspecting what he actually wants to do.
See, he didn't come across as like a typical crazy villain in the movie, though. I feel like they tried to take the Killmonger angle where they give him like a relatable premise to go for. Like, protecting your people is a reasonable thing, but killing everyone outside of the water is not a such a reasonable way to go about doing it, I guess.
But not basing it off the movie. I'm basing it off comic book.
Yeah, that I don't know. I know absolutely nothing about comic book Namor.
Yeah, I only kind of looked up a little bit of him, which he does look. He literally is kind of like a dark Aquaman. He just wants his own world.
And where was he with Thanos? Did they just like continue life as life was disappearing?
You know, I feel like probably some of them disappeared, and he's just like, well,
Okay.
that sucks for them.
Yeah, that's the one problem with the MCU getting as big as it is there's just going to be more plot holes as they introduce new characters. It's like, okay, well, where were you when this happened at this point in time, you know?
I disappeared for 5 years. his whole place. That's how we answer this. They all disappeared.
Sure. How unlucky.
They come back, they're still underwater. It's like, I don't remember this being this rusted or They go up to the surface. What? It's been 5 years? What the heck?
So yeah, I think Namor is solid. Nowhere near as good as Killmonger as a villain, in my opinion.
He was a fantastic villain.
Yeah.
And like I said, it is going to be very hard to compare this movie to that one.
Yeah,
it is just such a difference.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's why it's hard. I can't really be like, oh, this was so well done in the first movie. It's like, well, that was a different characters.
And then another character we get introduced to in the movie. So we get our introduction to Ironheart, played by Dominique Thorne. Character, her name in the movie is Riri, but she doesn't do a lot in the movie. What's revealed is that she's the one who designed the machine that can detect vibranium. And as a result, Namor wants to kill her because she made the machine, and then the CIA wants...
Which, that's just a whole other thing. It's like, they tell that she made this device. This device was made when she was in grade school for a science project.
Right. And
her science teacher was like, it'll never work, but she proved him wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's my question. When did the CIA government officials take this device, not take the girl, and they're just like, oh, we're going to steal this device, use it for ourselves, right. And, some bad guys have taken our machine. Hey, you're going to come and work for us now, whether you like it or not.
I don't think it was even bad guys that took the machine, because it was...
No, well, they didn't take it. It
right.
was the fish people that kind of broke it.
Yeah, because it's revealed that Everett Ross, their favorite colonizer, he was in a joint operation to try and find vibranium because no one can get it from Wakanda. And so this leads to Namor rising up out of the ocean to stop the people from, realizing they're there and taking their resources.
And he got done dirty, too.
I don't... As much as, Ironheart's a cool character, she's another fairly recent character that was done in the comics. I don't think she really needed to be in this movie. Are you good?
Don't die.
I'm good. Oh, you know how when saliva goes down the wrong pipe? I'm fine. We're good.
I didn't notice until I heard you I was like, are you okay? Yeah, I just don't feel like she really needed to be in the movie. They make her work in the movie, but I don't know, didn't feel necessary. I know it's largely to set her up for her TV show that's going to come through Disney Plus, but I don't think she really had to be there. It didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, her character kind of just was extra, going to the school, the police getting involved, going after a foreign royalty.
Yeah, I think the better way to approach new characters, because I like how Moon Knight did it. If they would have done her show first and then tied her into a movie, I'd probably like it more. I'm not a big fan of them introducing them in a movie and then giving them all their setup. Because, it's exciting to see a new character, but as a result of introducing her in this movie, you just don't know a lot about her and don't get the time to be interested in her as a character.
Especially when it's so poorly done.
Yeah, she, her character just didn't have a whole lot to do.
Right.
And her suit, again, she was literally making something that Tony Stark built in a cave. And she is 19 years old and copying that?
Yeah.
like, if you're gonna make a character like that, you need to give them more detail. Because that character then should have been doing something else.
Yeah,
entirely.
which I'm sure they'll do in her show. Just like I said, I wish they would kind of reverse how they're introducing
Although they
them.
don't let her keep the suit, so
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see exactly if she's just gonna build another temp suit or.
Right.
Which I don't mind seeing another like smart person build their own suit, because I mean, like, everyone knows who Tony Stark is and what he's done military wise and weaponry wise and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it's cool to see an independent person doing it on their own.
Because I will admit, like, the suit that she created was only able to be created because she had Wakanda's technology.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair.
Because the suit she had back at home in the garage was a, like, lower model than the Mark I model that Iron Man built when he was in the cave being imprisoned.
Yeah, but his wasn't polished either, though.
No.
It covered his whole body.
That's fair, but
Well, he's got resources that she definitely
Exactly,
does
and
not
that's
have.
exactly my point. It's like, she's 19 years old. How is she getting these resources to build the first suit?
the one thing that did get me, though, for someone who's like so smart, her literal home being invaded by when she feels like she's being attacked, she uses a speaker. Like, you don't think she has any weaponry anywhere in that room?
Yeah, I know. You would think she would have built something else to give her an edge.
Right.
Well, someone as smart as that,
Yeah.
I'm using a speaker.
She's gonna throw and then she knows who they were, too.
Yeah.
She instantly recognized who they were, and she's gonna throw a speaker at them.
Yeah, that's
That'd be me, though, under pressure. I'd be like...
That's just more dumb movie logic that I think this movie's kind of plagued with. Some of the decision making.
I think it was more for comedic effect.
Yeah, it was just kind of to throw it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the screaming goats.
Yeah.
Ragnarok.
Uh-huh. Stupid.
I laughed at him every time, but yeah. I will admit, the CIA agent, I forget his name already.
Everett Ross.
Everett Ross. Ross got done dirty through this whole thing. Because he's just trying to prevent war between two nations. And they just they apparently bugged him, which that didn't make any sense either. When would they have bugged him? Or how, like, what did they say they bugged? It sounded like they said they bugged the beads. Or did I mishear that?
I don't know. Like, the Wakandans bugging him? Or?
No, it was his ex-wife.
Oh,
His
yeah.
ex-wife bugged him, apparently.
Something, like, I think she implied that they saw the beads at the scene first or something. I don't know. Yeah, that part didn't really...
Okay,
No, I
that
think-
might have been
Yeah, because I think they know his relation with them. So knowing him coming onto a scene like that where it involved Wakanda and everybody, I'm sure they're...
But see, and then that's the whole thing, too. Why is the CIA trying to make that nation their enemy?
Resources. They want it.
Yeah, true, because his wife did have the line where he's like, could you imagine what would happen if America was the sole controller of vibranium? And she was like, I would love that.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think a whole lot of the mental state of every country is like, we are not safe unless we're the strongest one there.
Right.
Yeah, and that's just even more sad to think about, man.
Yeah.
Can't learn to live in peace with nobody. I mean, to be fair, the other thing that I thought was the strongest nation. They're trying to say that Wakanda is the strongest nation. My take on that is like, well, no, there's a way stronger power, and they protected your realm for years. That was Asgard. But after saying it out loud, when I thought about it before, I was like, oh wait, they're all dead too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's... Yeah.
And that's, like, it's kind of, look at that. Asgard was the strongest.
But
and
then-
now they have fallen.
But then Ragnarok happened.
Yeah.
What did you think of the conclusion? So we have the whole setup between the fight with Wakanda and the Tal something. Tal something.
I thought you were going somewhere else. I'm like, what movie are you
The Taliban.
Yeah, I can't think of their name. That's why I've just been going at fish people.
Keep on calling them Mayans.
Aztec is actually what they were.
Aztec, yeah.
Talocan, yeah.
Talocan.
So yeah, you have the final conflict with the Wakandans and the Talocan, Namor's people, which the first like invasion of Wakanda I thought actually was pretty cool. Like you get the water starting to flood the streets and then those water bombs start going off. And that scene I thought was great. Although I would have liked some explanation on how they're getting into Wakanda so easily.
Right.
Like, do they just not shield underwater?
Possible. Which is even weirder because they know what they're up against and they were like supposedly keeping an eye for that when everybody had gotten back, but yet they still didn't look in the water.
They all made it in apparently super easy because they were all like in Wakanda.
Like
very
I said,
quick.
though, like their defense system, their army was not as strong as they were making it out to be compared to the first one. The first Black Panther, we saw dozens of different groups of Wakandans. They were like the different factions.
Mm-hmm.
They all had their own abilities. They had the ponchos that were all made out of like vibranium and had shields built into them.
Right.
I can't remember his name either. The big guy, the guy who lived in the mountains.
Joe something.
Yeah.
Joe. Where are you at?
M'Baku. His character, his whole group was like meant to be strong, built men that had also vibranium technologies that helped them.
Mm-hmm.
No one had anything. Dude was using a stick the entire time, and it wasn't even made of vibranium.
I think the ball on it maybe was, at least later
Not
in the movie.
Not in the first part, though. When they first invaded, it was just a wooden one, because when he went to hit it, it just broke apart.
True. I think that's his Stripes thing, though. It's like he refers to it as the oak. It's supposed to be super strong. Not vibranium strong, but a different kind of strong.
That's another thing, too. Vibranium's also not supposed to break super easily, and they were breaking it left and right.
Well,
where did it break?
A lot of times that I wasn't sure at first, but they did admit that his spear was made of vibranium.
Yeah, because they also had vibranium.
Yeah,
like the Talocan.
Talocan had vibranium. Their spears were made of it. Although, one of his commanders, the guy that was fighting
the like hammerhead shark dude.
Yeah, his axe I don't think was vibranium at first. At least the headpiece might have been, but I think that got broken at one point, or it wasn't it wasn't breaking other things like it should have been.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so you have that first conflict, and then later on in the movie they get another fight, but this time Wakanda kind of takes the fight to them. This is where it logically didn't make a lot of sense to me, because like if you struggled on land against them, why would it then be better to take a boat and try and fight them like in the water?
Yeah. The other thing too is they literally kept doing the same things that they did. Like what is it? Talocan had sonic power apparently.
Yeah, so there's a few scenes that hinted these people like enchanting people to walk into the water.
Sing and then make them walk to the water.
Very siren-like.
Yeah. I thought that was
so
cool, but it's like, how did they get that power too?
Maybe they just
is their plant just way better than the heart plant?
I like to think that they learned how to communicate with the whales.
That's another thing. Like they must have had some kind of sonic ability, because that's how they were actually able to communicate with the whales.
Maybe it's just something they got from the herb they all drank initially.
I'm just curious on that. But so you have that first initial fight. They have that ability where they even start using it in the city, which, again, they probably should have had preparations for that. I feel like everybody should have, especially the emergency team, would have all forms of precautions.
Yeah, I think that one, because I don't think they really expected them to just, invade the city like that out of nowhere, though.
Yeah, which is weird, because they were told that they were going to do it.
I think it was just arrogance, them being like, nah, no one could just show up here and fight us out of nowhere. So yeah, I like the first combat scene. The boat one, not as much. That's where you move more towards the conclusion.
And they were literally about to lose that fight if it had not been for Shuri winning. Shuri. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so Shuri, there is a cool thing they do, because they learn Namor, gets his strength from the water. So she traps him in one of their ships, and evaporates the air around him to weaken him, which I thought was cool.
But then he had vibranium spear. And
Yeah, so he just kind of stabs the ship, and then the ship blows up. And you do get the final fight with Shuri in the Black Panther suit against Namor, which I thought was a good fight. It did wrap up a little abruptly because there's the part where he's just walking to the water after he stabs Shuri with the spear.
He hadn't been in any water for like that whole time, which
Yeah.
you would have thought, oh, the ship I was trapped in blew up. Let me dive into the water real quick, refresh, and go fight.
Yeah, but then so Shuri gets stabbed, and then she breaks the spear and like climbs off of it and does this like acrobatic jump in front of him to stop him from getting to the water. But then she does. I kind of hate this scene because it's one of those dumb moments where it's like, oh, they said the title, where she's like Wakanda Forever, and then makes the jet on the ship go off to burn his back, which I thought kind of abruptly closed the fight out. I don't know. I didn't love it. I don't hate it though. It's whatever.
Yeah, the fight just kind of like I get that she had the hard herb ability, so she had super strength. His was already looking way stronger still, and I feel like she kind of only won though because she pulled a spear out of her stomach and had plot armor to walk forward enough and
burn him with
the jet engine that luckily still worked.
Yeah, it did seem a little convenient for sure, but I get that they got to close it out somehow.
I feel like those flashes could have been a little better.
Yeah.
Like edited better, just in my opinion on that. That
Yeah.
was like, because they did way better like visuals for the first Black Panther for those.
The transitions were weird.
Yeah.
I did notice that.
Because transitions sometimes would just jump to one thing, especially when they were starting the montage of Shuri trying to figure out the hard herb and everyone building their suits and everything. Like at first just starts talking and she was like angry, and then they were having everybody kind of move up into the mountains. All of a sudden it's just jumping to Shuri doing something and it's going back and forth, back and forth. And it just felt like the jumping was a little too much. Yeah. And just not very well edited.
True. I mean, visually, like, it didn't have any moments for me, like the third act of the first Black Panther with the CGI suit fight that like we talked about in our top 5 MCU, that I wasn't a huge fan of. I'm glad they moved away from that in this movie.
Yeah, no CGI suit fight for this one.
Because if you think about it, like, Shuri in the Black Panther suit doesn't get a lot of runtime. It's really just that kind of final throwdown. And it looked fine. I didn't think it looked bad.
Not to totally critique it, she just looked very slim.
Yeah.
It looked like a black stick was kind of running around.
Canceled!
Canceled!
It's a black suit!
Jeez.
Well, she's just a naturally skinny woman, you know?
Yeah. But like I was saying...
Like I said, though, editing-wise looked bad. Right. For the suit.
Yeah, but like I was saying earlier, so the one thing I did like at the end of the first Black Panther is T'Challa does give Killmonger the option to yield and live, you know. Mm-hmm. So at the end of this movie where she gets that ancestral connection with her mom and she says, show him who you are, she gives Namor the option to yield and live, and that she even says, like, we'll help protect your nation, all that good stuff, and he does agree to yield. Did you guys like that conclusion to it, or? I
mean, yeah, it was a good conclusion, and then of course you still see Namor talk about how he's like, "Oh, I can still use this because the other nations are still going to go attack Wakanda and their resources.
Right?
They're going to prep for it because they're going to want it, and they're going to need our help."
Yeah, I don't think because he at the very end when one of his main like co-fish people was like, why did you yield? I can't imagine you yielding to someone so inferior. And yeah, he does give the argument like Wakanda has no allies, which they kind of do because they have the outreach centers. So like they're actively helping people and people are aware of them. So I can't imagine, like, yes, you do have some of the foreign nations going after them, like in the beginning where it's revealed that the French foreign leaders were already trying to get the vibranium. But yeah, we'll see. I'm assuming Nemo will show back up at some point. Mm-hmm. But I think it was a solid conclusion. But let's go ahead and move into our final ratings here. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, I think the movie is largely okay. It's definitely not as bad as some of the other movies we've gotten from Phase 4. So I think we're ending Phase 4 on a decent note, but for me it's probably like a 7 out of 10. Not bad. Not great. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it.
I still give it a 6.
Yeah. And Brianna?
I give it a solid goldfish extra cheddar.
I don't know what that means.
It's good. That's the best goldfish.
Just like standard goldfish?
It's no Cheez-It, but it's a goldfish.
Yeah, I think compared to how bad Phase 4 has been, we're not ending on like as bad of a note as we can be. I think it's much better than Doctor Strange and Thor and Eternals, in my opinion. I think it beats all those movies out. But for me, it's probably like the third or fourth for me from this phase. Because
I don't really feel like I have a rating for any of them.
Yeah, I mean, Shang-Chi and Spider-Man would definitely be up in my top 2. The third spot, I feel like that would either be Black Panther or Black Widow, even though I'm not a huge fan of either of the movies. That's just kind of how meh this phase has been for me. But yeah, so not the best way to close the phase out, in my opinion, but at least ending on a better note than we did with Thor and Doctor Strange. But that pretty much wraps it up today. So if you made it this far, we just want to thank you for taking the time to check out our show, and hopefully we'll keep you interested as we release further episodes. But that being said, if you feel so inclined, leave us a review if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We're also on YouTube. And with that, we hope to catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Ciao.